So let's get started. Just going to do a handful of slides. I know you guys love slides, but we're only going to do a handful. I forgot to change the date. So as probably most of you know, Process Designer used to be called Abydos, and I forgot to rename it on this slide. But the idea is to really be able to do process design quickly through a visual interface. You hear us talk a lot about it with service request management in terms of possibly supplementing or replacing PDTs and AOTs from service request management with the Process Designer flows. But absolutely there are ways you can use it in the back end. And we're going to show you three flavors today. We're going to show you it from service request management. We're going to show it kind of on the incident side, where we're going to do something I think is interesting. We're going to have a series of incidents come in, and when enough come in, it's going to auto-create a problem using Process Designer. And then finally, we're going to look at using it with change management to generate tasks. And again, the key thing is to get you guys a little bit, focus into what you can do with it, give you a feel for it, so you can think about, well, what do I want to do with it, and expand from there. For those of you that haven't seen anything of the Process Designer before, it is meant to be a graphical interface. So basically, you build your process using all the tools from the palette. You drag and drop them over. You fill in the data, and you fill in your fields, and you're good to go. So from the palette, drag over into your process, and build the process as you go. So for people who are visually inclined, which most of us are, it's a real nice way to be able to go ahead and build through your process. You can see that it can be pretty complicated. Let me actually back up a bit. You can see that you can have a pretty complicated process flow here. So we've got a decision box here. We've got it going yes or no. You can put approvals in here. So if you don't want to use the BMC approval engine that's part of the Remedy system, you can actually do approvals in here. So you can have a very complicated process flow out here, branching off in different directions based upon answers and whatnot. So it really gives you some good flexibility. For those of you on the suite licensing, Process Designer is included. So you do have access to this. I believe it's compatible with 7604 and above. If you're not yet on 7604 or 8.1, we want to get you there. RightStar can certainly help you get there as well. If you haven't seen 8.1, there's some cool things. We recommend getting to it. Okay, that was a little off Process Designer, but wanted to mention it. So that's the building the process flows. Then what happens back on the incident side or the change side, tasks get automatically created. And you can skip tasks if, as you move through the process flow, things happen. You might actually skip tasks. So it's a nice way to do those task assignment without having to go in, build your task templates, build your group templates, link them to the change. You can actually have the Process Designer do it as it goes through and based upon the kind of change. So we'll see an example in our presentation of a change that comes in with a certain operational categorization is going to auto-attach 3 tasks based on Process Designer. So not done through a template, not done manually, done through the data and the change, done through Process Designer. So that's pretty nice. And then while you're working through the process, you're going to be able to see where you are. Just like when you bring up the tasks and change management and you can see where you are. You can also bring up the Process Designer tracker to see where you are in the Process Designer. So as you move through, what steps are done, it'll actually show you the process flow as well. So as we go through here, if we went to yes, there'll be certain colors over on the yes side. On the no side, you'd basically see blank boxes. And we'll see that when we go in as well. So visually, you're able to see where you are in your process at any particular point in time, which is pretty useful when you have a complicated process. Okay, we're going to do some simple processes today, but hopefully it gives you a feel again for what you can do. So I'm going to start off on service request management. Of course, those of you who are starting to use MyIT know that you can link service request to either our standard service request or to the Process Designer request process, whether you're using MyIT or service request management. I'm just choosing to use SRM today. And so I did a really exciting service request out here for the purposes of the demo, where I just said answer A or B. So that's a very exciting thing here, but we'll see what process this kicks off. So this is a service request. Looks just like all your other service requests that hook into PDTs, AOTs, and all that form. But in this case, I have this linked to Process Designer. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. It's going to kick off a Process Designer flow. And when I bring it up here, you'll see what that looks like. I like to show this first so you kind of know the end game. So I select something based on my answer. Do you answer A or B? That's completed. I answered A, so I created an incident. If I had answered B, it would have created a change. Pretty simple, pretty basic, but this is something we often like to do. Based upon their answers to the service request questions, we want them to pop off different kinds of activities. Maybe they create the work order to get a phone, maybe they don't. So this is the first example we're going to work on, because this is a lot of what people are using Process Designer for, is for people who want to do something different from the PDTs and AOTs. They find this a little bit simpler. So let's just look and see how this one is created. To get to this, there is a small Java client that we run to build the process flows. So here is my process flow answer A or B. Really exciting, I know. But key thing is, let's actually do a brand new one. Let's show how this is how I created this. And so basically, I clicked on New Process up here in the top left, and so I named it A, B, C. We'll throw in another one. Type is just a way to classify it so you can find it again. I could stick it under Service Request Management, Basic Concepts, whatever, or I could type in a new type. If I wanted to type in something new, I could. This is just a way to categorize your processes so you can find them later. I'm going to go ahead and click on the expand box by request. So I went a little fast there. This request, this is the form that you want to run against. You can run against any form in the system. But to make things a little easier, we have that expand box, and we have the common forms here. This is going to run against service request. So it just keeps me from having to search through that whole list. Goes ahead and fills it in. If I had picked incident, it would have put in HPD help desk. And here you again what company you're going to go against. I'll just go ahead and do global, and we'll start a new process. I am not a visual person, so I am not the best at Process Designer, but even I can build processes out here, and those of you who are the visually based are going to do a lot better than I am. So basically now I build that flow chart, the set of stuff I want to go through, and I'm going to start with the decision task because I want to know, based upon the answer to the question, something's going to happen. So answer to question, we'll just name it something. Hopefully you guys will name something that makes more sense to you. And then remember I had that answer, A or B. So the answer in the service request, I'm going to be put into a field, and I'm going to pull that field into this box. So this is an important link. Basically what I did is I took that answer in the service request, and I popped it into SR field 1. And so here is where I'm going to go ahead and have a field to hold the answer. So answer A or B. I'm going to go ahead and put it here. I'm going to have it a character. We'll do OK. Great. So that answer that comes in, I want to get into SR field 1. So I do a set field. Actually, I want to take SR field 1 and put it into answer. I think I said it backwards. So in my service request, I said whatever answer they pick, I'm going to put it into SR field 1. Now I'm going to put that SR field 1 into a variable I can use in my Process Designer. Does that make sense? May or may not. Sometimes it took me a few times walking through this to have it all make sense. But so I'm going to say, I'm going to set my process field. Think of this as a global variable that I'm going to be using throughout the Process Designer. And I'm going to pull it from SR field 1 because that's where I stored in my service request definition, I stored my end user's answer. If I stored it somewhere else, I would, of course, use those. I'm just going to use SR field 1. So I'm going to store it in SR field 1. And then based on the answer to that, I want to create either an incident or a change. So create incident, create change. These are my tasks. Create change. And then I do set fields. And this got me the first time I was doing a Process Designer. I didn't quite get the double dropping. So I first dropped the task, I want to create a change, and then I drop my set field action on top of that, and I say how I want to do that. And I didn't actually want to do a set field. I'm sure some of you out there going, Ann, you picked the wrong one. The action I want to do in this case is set new request, right? I don't want to just set one field. I want to create a whole incident. So my task is to create incident, The action on top of it is create new request. And here are my requests that I can create. So I want to create a new incident. I'm going to go ahead and just make it easy on myself and use the same values as in the parent service request. I wouldn't have to. I could use a template if I wanted to, or I could just fill in data. Again, to make my life a little easier, I'm going to go ahead and use a template. But normally I would probably fill in values. But if you have a template, use it. So we walk through. You can see all the values we're going to fill out. And so if I pick this A and I drop it on this box, it's going to create an incident with those values. If I go the other way and I want to create a change, again, I drop that new request on top of that task. Now this time I'm going to create a change record. And again, I'm going to get a series of screens to walk through. And again, for convenience sakes, I'm going to use a template. I would normally fill in the fields myself manually. I believe I do have to put a support company in here. And then she'll run through the assignment engine. So that's great. Now all I have to do is say, when am I going to do one or the other? So I'm going to go ahead and draw the lines. You guys, all of you have been using Visio, you know how to draw the lines. And then I double click on one of these lines, and I basically say if my answer is A, I'm going to go this way. So if answer equals A, I'm going to go on that line. Answer equals B. I'm going to go ahead, let me go ahead and hit that. Answer equals B. I'm going to go that way. So that answer field, again, is a temporary variable we're walking through. So that's basically how you draw the process. We can get much more complicated. We don't have time to, so we're not going to. Then when I want to hook it to my service request definition, I have to save it, I have to promote it, etc. But here's where I do that. I'm in my service request definition. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. Down here is where you pick your process template. I'm going to go ahead and clear it for now. When I select on that view to pick my process template, I see all the things that are normally in my service request definition. And let me actually hit select, not view. So I can see either my normal PDT, AOT stuff that I have out here, or I can say I want to use the designer process. So here I can see my designer processes, and that's where I go ahead and select it. Of course, questions and mappings are where I'm going to go ahead and select the answer from the service request form into SR field 1. So I know that seems convoluted. The first couple times you do it, it's convoluted, I'll admit that. But basically I have a question here, I have a question A or B, and then down here I'm mapping that into SR type field 1, and then I map that over into the answer on my process designer. So that's how that whole process works. There was a question around the approvals. You can do approvals in Process Designer without using Approval Central. You actually do it when you pull an approval action over. Or you can, if you wanted to, you just go through your normal process, create a back-end change record, and have that go through Approval Central, or SRM go through Approval Central. So it's your choice. You can use the approvals that are part of the Process Designer, or you could go ahead and the approval actions in here, down at the bottom, or you can use the ones that are in Approval Central, or both. In terms of being able to use an SRM service request in MyIT, so what you expose on MyIT are the service requests that are visible out here in request entry. Almost all kinds are available in MyIT. By now they all may be. I know in MyIT 1.6, I don't think we allowed AIFs in MyIT. I think in 1.7 we now allow AIFs. In 2.0, which is coming out around the corner, again, we're continuing to expand. But it's not a question of importing or exporting to MyIT. It's just in your MyIT administration, you say, here are the service requests I want to see in MyIT as well as in my SRM. And like I said, in the past, not all were exposable in MyIT, but by now I think they probably all are, and we can certainly verify that later.